Hello again, everybody. Welcome to Weebin Out Podcast Episode 4. I am your host, Ryan, and y'all have heard enough about us the last couple episodes, but as usual, I'm joined by my fellow dumpster fires, Jake and Joey. Say hi, gentlemen.
What's up?
I'm dumpster fire number 2, by the way. Joey gets
Yeah,
to be dumpster fire number 1.
it
That's
needs to
alright,
be
I'm
made
Alpha.
very clear that Jake is number 2, always, but he's not number 2 in my heart.
Oh.
Well,
I am the Alpha Dumpster Fire, so.
Well, we're really glad to have y'all here today, and we're going to go over Hero Academia, as usual. And Jujutsu Kaisen is back after a week break, thank God. So I'm very excited about this one. And as usual, it is current manga, so if you are not caught up, there will be spoilers ahead, and you can click the timestamps to skip around if you need to. So, Hero Academia, gentlemen. So I know in episode 2 of our podcast, we talked about how we thought the build-up chapters were over and things were finally going to start happening. I kind of let last week's chapter slide, but man, I can't help but feel like we got another 2 build-up chapters.
Yeah.
This week we had a thorough explanation by All Might on how Aizawa Sensei came up with a plan to make use of All for One's ego to capture or to catch him by surprise. As we predicted, the heroes used a quirk to communicate for Aoyama's parents. So Shinso finally made his appearance, as we knew he would eventually have an important role to play. They combined Shinso's quirk with the Phantom Thief, which, I'll be totally honest, I completely forgot that this kid existed, such as the Class B students. Everybody just, I mean, does anybody remember any of them? It's hard to
Yeah,
say.
so I was much more okay with using Monoma and Phantom Thief for the teleporter than I was for their intro of Shinso just coming in and they're again Horikoshi just writing away and retconning plot lines. Just I thought you couldn't do this. Oh, well, I mean, I've just been training off screen,
Yeah,
so I mean, I can do this now. But
it's
don't
kind of
don't
it's
worry, guys. Don't worry. He says in the chapter that the process for doing this is more strenuous than regular. So it's not an ass pull. It's not. He says himself it's harder for me to do it.
yeah.
So it's
It's like
fine.
it's like Goku going up in Kaioken, from times 2 to times 3. Like, oh, I swear, it just it puts a bigger strain on my body.
Yeah.
Anyways,
At least with Monoma, that part actually makes sense. I would have been really upset if Eraser got through to his friend.
right. So anyways, they use the Phantom Thief and Shinso's quirk to pit all of the heroes against the villains, as we saw at first in last chapter, without leaving Deku to get ganged up on and, lose one for all. So they utilize what seems to maybe be like the same technology that, you know how they said they can like move around the parts of the UA school for
Yeah.
defense? I'm wondering if that's the same technology that they're using here for these cages.
Oh,
Um, so at first I thought it might be Cementos, but they don't show Cementos, so I don't think
yeah.
it's him. But they're basically using cages to split up the heroes and villains into various matchups, where they then portal them away with Kurogiri's quirk, to assumingly to create advantageous matchups.
Yeah. I mean, they just pulled a Greed Island from Hunter x Hunter essentially.
I
Just
kind of figured that
what?
it was a creation made, cuz when Deku goes to go get his gear fixed after his long time out in the field, uh she's basically says, "Nah, I'm too busy to work on your stuff, but here's some other things that I've already made." Uh
Mm-hmm.
but she was working on something else. So it makes sense
I'm too
that
busy.
the
Yeah, they did set
supports,
up for that.
yeah, did
I'm
make
too
something.
busy to work on your stuff because I already worked on your stuff.
Lol.
No, so in the chapter, it's very quick, and because I looked into this too when I read it, and I was kind of confused about whether or not it was Cementos, because they do say originally that he was integral in the design of the moving UA stuff, and it seems like if you reread it, when Shigaraki first lands, when they first get out, he's touching the ground, and he notices something, and if you watch the ground, you can go. It's not really illustrated that well, but it's clear that the heroes prepped this area in advance, and it looks like either it was what's his name, Shoto, covered the ground in ice so they wouldn't notice originally, and then when the stuff starts moving, you see it's breaking parts of the ground, and so Shigaraki tries to tell Dabi that something's not right, I believe, and Dabi just does his I see Endeavor now, so all my thought goes out the window, and just
Hmm. He's fully focused on his vengeance. That makes
yeah.
sense. I didn't consider any kind of like ice layer from Todoroki. Um, that could be interesting.
Yeah, when the cages come up, they break. I mean, I could be wrong about the ice layer, but they definitely break something that was on the ground, and Shigaraki notices it. But I'm assuming it happens really quickly, so they couldn't he couldn't
Hmm.
really
Hmm.
tell them. But
Um, so the way that it's shown in the manga, we don't really see who exactly is locked into cages with each other. Just the way that they frame it, you just kind of like see that there are multiple cages. Um, we talked about our predictions for who is going to fight who, but based on this chapter, Jake, what do you think? You think you can predict any of the matchups? Outside of the obvious like Endeavor versus Dobby.
Yeah, that's the obvious one. The others are kind of toss-ups right now. I don't know. Deku is obviously going to go up against either uh Shigaraki or potentially
all for one.
yeah, all for one. But which one he goes up against first is kind of I'm guessing it's gonna be all for one. That's my guess. I'm guessing the final battle will be Shigaraki versus Deku. So that's my
There's two
guess
all for ones.
is that it'll be all for one versus Deku first. Uh, Everybody else there's no telling. Honestly, it was. I'm still going with my guess that it's gonna be Ochako will be going up against
Toga.
Thank you. My brain is not good with names. We've known this from the past few episodes, but she'll definitely be going up against her. Or, well, I say definitely, but there's a pretty high chance of it. Other than that, it's still a toss up. We were not shown much about anybody getting who got trapped with who. We were not shown a lot.
Well, we were. I don't think that the heroes were trapped in the cages with the villains.
You think just the villains were trapped?
Yeah, it only shows if you go back, it shows all for one, Toga and Shigaraki and Dabi specifically being locked in the cages, and then the cages are thrown through the portals. So I'm thinking
Oh, well,
that
yeah, they're just gonna follow them through the portals.
yeah, yeah.
Or
So
do you
the heroes will go to the individual portals that they go to.
That's fair. Or do you think maybe they might just portal them off and gang up on like all for one?
That's possible too, honestly.
I feel like that would be like the easiest way to deal with him, but because that's the easiest way to deal with him, they probably won't write
I
write it
mean,
that way.
But he's not even the strongest person on the field anymore. I don't think.
they could do that, but I mean, realistically, how many of them are just gonna get blown away in like half a second?
Yeah.
I don't.
I mean,
He
for most of
easily
these
took
fights,
out. he easily took out like the top 5 or 6 heroes when he was fighting All Might originally, and to our knowledge, he hasn't lost any of his quirks. So I mean, unless the transfer or whatever the hell he did with Shigaraki, you know,
Right.
he's now
Unless
worthless. It doesn't seem like it.
unless he could possibly like have connected quirks with Tomura in some way and lost some with the Stars and Stripes fight.
Yeah, I don't see the
Otherwise, there's no
benefit.
reason why he wouldn't like
Yeah,
just have
I
all of
don't
his stuff.
I don't see the benefit of them ganging up on All for One. I
But
mean,
even
it's
the
not like any of the heroes are gonna die, so
The-
they could.
even the heroes ganging up on literally any of them. There's just so many that are just so far outclassed by even who I'd say the weakest member out of all 4 of them, Dabi. They're just outclassed.
Oh, you're forgetting Spinner.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's true. That's true.
Who could
Spinner.
forget Spinner?
Yeah, dude. That's actually the real final battle. It's Deku and Bakugo versus Spinner.
I love how
I've been waiting my whole life for this.
I love how in the villains chapter, like when they were doing the build-ups, they just threw Spinner in there in like the last one, where it's like, hey, don't forget Spinner. You have the reptile like people's support, and you're a hero. And he's just like, whatever.
And he's like, "Shut up. I
Yeah.
love Stain."
That literally, you saying that, Joey. I'm gonna be honest. I don't even remember that.
Spinner just seems so inconsequential.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Right,
Yikes.
so, last thing, real quick, because we talked about the hero side. Let's talk about the villain side really quickly. We know that Toga has twice his blood up her sleeve. We know that that's there. We know that All for One and Shigaraki have. I mean, All for One has a plan, unless they've completely completed his horrible transformation to I'm now a complete comic book villain, and I'm just going to make every single traditional comic book villain mistake in the book, which he's already doing so far. I hope that's not the case, but do you guys have any ideas of like a counter action really quickly from the villains, Ryan?
No, I think they're all gonna be pretty happy with like their. I mean, we just talked about Spinner. I don't know what the hell Spinner wants, but I think Dabi and Toga are gonna be pretty darn happy with what they've got going on, and I think Tomura's probably feeling like he's so powerful it doesn't matter what they do.
I don't know what the hell Tomer is thinking. I don't understand that character anymore.
No, I don't either.
So you're of the same mind, Jake, or it's just we don't know enough about the series right now.
I think the villains are so like on the power scale being so much stronger. The heroes having a plan, it's gonna help the heroes, but that's the only thing they have going for them.
Yeah.
The villains just outclass them.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean they had to, right?
Which is why I don't think that they have to be as concerned with the hero's plan.
Right. Well, we'll have to wait and see because
for next week's build-up chapter.
We certainly didn't see
it's
it
very,
this week.
We certainly didn't see it this week.
It's very strange to me to see that almost nothing has happened in 2 more chapters when he's apparently supposed to be finishing the manga this year.
And people still say the pacing for this series is amazing.
Yeah, I don't know. I just want them to start, having
doing
things
something?
happen. Yeah. Well, anyways.
Hey
Moving
man,
on to a better manga.
You could have some other shows pacings like the people who read the manga for Rent a Girlfriend. They don't even want to talk to you about pacing.
Yeah, that's true.
Guilty is charged, by the way.
Anyways, we're finally back with Jujutsu Kaisen. It was only a week break, but damn it, it felt like forever.
Yeah.
So we have Okotsu, having to deal with the top 3 cursed energy users slash the spirit, in his respective region. We talked a little bit about this the last time we discussed JJK. But now we have him in the fight with Kurorushi, and we immediately seem to have Okotsu really outclassing the hell out of this cockroach. Okotsu himself recognizes that um, he could feel he's being watched by the other 2 fighters. Um, he surmises that they must be like really high-ranking fighters. So he probably knows it's like the other top 2 strongest. And he wants to defeat Kurorushi while holding back his reverse curse technique. That way he can, not reveal too much of his power before fighting the real enemies. I was personally expecting him to outclass Kurorushi. I don't know about you guys,
I
but
didn't
at
expect him to come out as pansexual.
what?
What?
Oh yeah, he makes out with Kurouchi.
Ah,
Oh, that's okay.
wait.
Oh boy.
I was gonna lead into that. Can we reel it back?
Oh. My bad.
You will have a chance to make that joke. Let's just reel it back for a second.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
Okay.
um, so Okotsu wants to defeat Kurorushi without revealing too much of himself. But at the very least, even though he outclasses him, the roach actually forces him to kind of show his hand, at least somewhat. Um, and what has to be the most Chad moment I've seen in a very long time, Joey, why don't you give us a rundown of Okotsu's victory? Um, and I have a follow-up question.
Yeah, well, I mean, of all the things I was expecting in this chapter, I didn't expect Akotsu to come out as pansexual. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but I mean, if you're going to, you might as well blow your lover away, and I think he absolutely did. Um, Kurouchi ends up surprising Okotsu with his life,
Earth insect
like,
trance.
well, but before that, his sword. I forget the name of it. It's like life stealing sword or something.
Hmm.
And Okotsu blocks the attack, but his sword actually shoots out like insect pods into Okotsu that end up erupting from him, and that leaves Okotsu open for an attack that he then takes to get Kurouchi closer to him, to then spring his surprise uh, 1,000 years of death on to Kurouchi and give him the final Godfather kiss there.
Yeah, he literally blows him away with a reverse curse technique straight from the mouth.
Yeah.
I was, I don't know about you guys, but when I saw that, I was just like, oh my god, like, that was just the
Yep.
Chad move of this century. Like, here you got this giant cursed spirit roach that literally is about to freaking eat him alive, and he's just like, nah, doc, I'm just gonna freaking destroy you with my mouth.
My mouth is classified as a lethal
Y-
weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty
Yeah,
much.
I thought that was pretty sick. Um, like I was just saying, so Kurorushi has his earth insect trance. It seems based on like the way that they show Okotsu's eyes, it seems like it might have an effect. Once he defeats Kurorushi, we have the female of the 2 strongest fighters popping down to surprise attack him in the final panel. And he seems maybe not surprised. I think he saw it coming, but he seems like he might be dealing with a little something. What, Joey, do you think there are some lingering effects from Kurorushi's technique?
I mean, potentially, it's really hard to tell in JJK because the techniques are they're so varied, man.
Yeah.
It's really hard to speculate. I It could be a lingering technique. It could be that, he knew they were there, but he maybe wasn't expecting them to jump in so quickly, like right after. I also think it could just be possible that he didn't, he didn't expect her to get to him so quickly.
Right.
I mean, she can. We don't have a lot of idea on her power. The
Right.
vague description that we got is that she can control the sky,
Right.
whatever that
Um,
is. And then in the final panel, we see like a distorted area.
yes.
So
This is this is exactly what I wanted to touch on really quick, Jake. We like he said in that final picture, we have like the little distortion,
Yep.
um, seemingly like out of nowhere, like in the middle of the air. Any thoughts on what this could be?
I think once again I'm gonna go with something that Joey said, uh, because everything is so varied. It is hard to tell
Yeah.
what it could possibly be. I feel like you might think that you know what it could be. What do you think it is, Ryan?
I have two guesses,
Okay.
and neither of them are that creative, but I'll just throw them out there. It could be like some kind of like teleport. Um, or what I think is more likely is she used the space in the sky to propel herself towards Okotsu.
Hmm.
oh
Because we see her hanging upside down in the two other little like shots that we have of her as they're
yeah,
watching the fight go down. Um, so that's, I mean, my more likely guess is that she's hanging like on like a distorted piece of the sky, quote unquote, since she
Yep.
controls it.
so
And she just uses that to propel herself towards Okotsu, which is, potentially how she surprises him at like getting there so quickly.
I have
That
a
could make
guess.
sense.
I have a guess, but it's a little out there.
All right,
Um,
I instantly
when
disagree with you.
yeah, when
Just
when
get
we
it out of the
first
way.
when we first see her, when it's I think it's 2 chapters ago, when she's introduced, she, instead of wearing clothes, her you know privates and whatnot, her chest and waist or whatnot, they're just not there. They've disappeared entirely. So it's possible that she creates like a fold in the sky. For lack of a better term, she creates like her own pocket dimension in the sky, and she
Mhm.
can just, within a certain range, depending on the amount of cursed energy that she has, she can just like swim or go into it or just move wherever in the sky. Because I know that her power is going to have something to do with that first shot that we see her, because that's very unique about how she can just
Um,
similar to
would you?
Obito in
I was just
Naruto.
about to ask,
Yeah,
do you think that would act similarly to Obito's power, where he's there, but part of him isn't because
yeah,
he's like
yeah,
tucking it into another reality or whatever.
yeah. That's my guess. At least going off of the first image that we see from her. I don't know how she moves around that quick, but yeah, that would be my guess.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just going off of what you've even said, Joey, like she can literally warp the sky
Yeah,
to do what she needs to, even using it as like a pocket dimension or making the sky more malleable to herself. She could also have done exactly what Ryan said and used that
yeah.
as a
As a springboard.
springboard
Yeah,
to get to
Yeah,
the ground fast.
yeah. We could equally be both right, and we could also equally be like
completely wrong.
completely wrong.
Yeah.
We'll just have to wait and see. Um,
Wrap up
but yeah, I
question.
I like how this was like a short, sweet, like just a nice little fight.
Yeah, it was mainly
Yep.
just the whole chapter was just a fight. So
Yeah,
Yep.
and I liked it. I liked that. I mean, at this point, I think her spirits, aside from like Sukuna, well, Sukuna's maybe a bad example, but like, you know, her spirits on the level of Jogo and Hanami and whatnot. If they're not on that level, then I think sorcerers like Okotsu just don't have a problem with cursed spirits anymore. I I think they'd much have a much more difficult time with curse users specifically. Speaking of, do we think that the third participant is going to wait for this, assuming that this is a fight that's going to happen? Because I'm assuming all of us think that he's going to fight her next chapter.
I don't know if I'd say he will absolutely fight her. There's a chance, but I don't know that I'd say that this is guaranteed going to be a fight.
Right. Do we think he's going to step in at the same time?
I think it's personally, I think it's gonna kind of be like a death ball.
Yeah.
Like they watch Kurorushi start to like fight him and maybe reveal a little bit about himself, and then the chick goes in, um, and further whittles Okotsu down to where the final dude will swoop in with all this knowledge of how Okotsu fights and like push him to the brink.
Yeah.
I think the third user will likely wait, if this is indeed a fight, will likely wait to see how the fight pans out, and then depending upon who wins, he'll just swoop in
He
and
doesn't,
finish off the other.
yeah,
Yeah.
because he doesn't seem like he's like chomping at the bit, like raring to go. Like he's just
Yeah.
kind of like he's just chilling. He's like, yeah, okay, like this guy seems strong. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. All right.
He seems very confident in himself.
Well, he
So,
was stated to have the highest cursed energy output of the tournament.
right.
Whether that's true or not, we shall see, because that's the thing about this series, much like Hunter as well. You know, the characters themselves could be wrong about their own power.
In
Hmm.
the wise words of Dragon Ball Z abridged, power levels are bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I think that.
Very excited for next week's chapter, but I think that just about does it for JJK.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now we're gonna go
As
into our
usual.
shows. So if you've been watching us, you will know that I finished Rent a Girlfriend last week, and I needed something new going forward. I went back and forth a couple times, and actually, not even Jake or Joey know what I ended up on, but I wound up watching the Realist Hero. Yes, I know, a shitty isekai. Big yikes. But
Big oof.
it's actually a little different, and it's not that bad. Um, which is high praise for an isekai saying that it's not that bad.
It's mid.
Um, and I also haven't watched an isekai in quite a while. So maybe that has something to do with me thinking that it's like enjoying it. But
Well, that's only
basically,
ReZero, right, for you?
I guess so. It's hard to even think of ReZero as an isekai. It's more like just its own genre. It's just
Yeah,
so.
currently.
I won't get into ReZero because we'll talk forever about it. But
Yeah.
maybe one day we'll have to do a video about it.
Oh, for
Um,
sure.
but anyways, character, yep, he gets teleported to another world. The one thing that they show us before that happens is he's with his grandfather, and his grandfather is his last family member alive. Um, he doesn't. They really only say that like his grandma's gone, his mom and his dad are gone, so he must be an only child. Um, and his grandma gives him, or his grandpa gives him advice to um, start a family and to protect it someday. Um, and then they show the main character at his grave, um, and boom, he is in a library and he's teleported to another world. Um, so immediately we know he's kind of a book nerd. Um, he's very intelligent. Why wouldn't he be? But
Yeah.
the people of this world summon him, and it's due to a crisis, go figure, from a demon invasion that has taken over about a third of the continent.
You don't
Um,
say.
I know.
That doesn't happen in isekais.
I know.
Demon Lord.
And there's like three major countries. There's multiple countries, but there's like three major ones. There's the one that he's in, Elfrid, something like that. Elfrid, I think that's how it's pronounced. And then there's like the Chaos country, that borders the demon domain, and then another country that they haven't talked that much about that also borders the demon country. Um,
Which one of them is going to be a demon country?
but but the one, well, they have like a demon continent, or not
Oh, okay.
continent, but they have like a
Alright.
demon territory. Like the
Gotcha.
top, like the very northern part of it is all like demon territory. And then like underneath it's all
The
like
three others.
the
Gotcha.
people that have like been able to hold off the demon invasion. They
Gotcha.
explained it as like it slowed down significantly because the demons stretched themselves so thin from having so
Right,
much
right.
land to
Yep.
cover.
Yep.
That makes sense.
So anyways, the country MC is in is very safe, very south, totally out of harm's way. Doesn't have to worry about the demons, at least not right now. But they are expected to give like funding to the Empire, the Chaos Empire, um, so that they can continue to hold off the demons. And they have run out of funds, so that's why they summoned the hero. They want to give the hero over to the Chaos Empire, like as a tribute.
But this is where
Um,
we see the twist of the show.
but the hero is just talking to the king, and he's like, "No, no, 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 don't do that. We don't even know what they're gonna do to me, and instead, why don't I just help you get your finances in order?"
Yeah. I
So I shit you not, the main character literally just talks to them for 3 days, talks to the king and like
yeah.
his advisors for 3 days about like their finances and whatnot. And the king decides that he's unfit to rule and succeeds his throne to the main character.
He's an
And,
accountant.
and the main character
Yeah.
becomes the IRS for the kingdom.
Yeah. So
He literally becomes like the IRS basically. And he like uses some like magic that they have to like communicate with the entire kingdom, and he's like, yo, I need capable people. If you think that you're the best in your craft, come and see me.
oh my
So
god, he's hosting interviews.
yeah, so he basically he shows oh, by the way, the king um announces on his own that the main character is betrothed to his daughter, because
He
why
just
wouldn't
makes the
they be?
decision.
Yeah, he just decides that they're gonna get married.
Yeah.
Um, and uh, the main character is just like, well, yo, you guys have been making all of this cotton because it sells really well, but you're running out of food. That's like the big crisis they're under. Like they're broke and they're out of food.
Aside from the
Because
demons.
yeah, because well, they're not under immediate threat from the demons, remember?
Oh, okay, yeah,
Um, So he's basically trying to figure out their food and their money crisis, and he summons these people, and um he gets this fat dude who is uh like a culinary like friggin' wizard, not an actual wizard, but like just like
He's a great cook.
an expert in all things like food. He doesn't
Yeah.
cook, he just eats.
Oh.
But the main character gets super hyped, and he's like, "Oh my god, yes, I've been waiting for you. You know about all of the food in the world. You're gonna help me save this kingdom." Um, then he also has this chick who descends from like sirens, like that universe's version of sirens, like they lure pirates
yeah.
with their singing type
Yeah.
of thing. Um, so he's got that, and then he also has uh some dude who they kind of set up to be like his major strategist or whatever.
Gotcha.
Um oh, and then there's like this girl who can talk to animals.
She's just chilling.
Yeah, and they leave the third episode off with her being like, "Oh, I have to tell you something," and like then he does the like shocked face, and it ends.
All right.
So that's all I've gotten through so far. So basically, um,
So
it's about
I
as generic as it comes, just with a little bit less like OP hero and a little more like, hey,
IRS.
let's look into like what makes this kingdom function and why it would fail going down these routes. And that's the part that I find kind of interesting.
Yeah, so I actually did hear about this show for the current season of anime, and I read the synopsis and I watched like the first episode, and I was like, oh, okay, this is isekai trash. And the one thing that did kind of interest me a little bit was the twist on it, where this guy comes in to to an old fantasy kingdom, and he's basically like, you guys have no idea how to run stuff at all.
Hmm.
Uh, your finances are terrible. Your infrastructure is horrible,
Yep.
and I now have to play Fantasy Kingdom Simulator
Yes,
to
literally.
fix it.
He does have a
And
really like he has a really OP magic that literally lets him project his consciousness into an inanimate object. So like while he's talking to people, he'll literally have like a glove in his quarters that's like flipping through books and like reading stuff that like feeds information back to him in real time. And I'm like,
oh, that's crazy.
that's really overpowered, but at least not in just like a I can kill everybody if I want to way.
True.
Yeah, not a generic strength boost.
Yes.
I
There's
probably would have watched
there's
this.
there's a couple little twists that make it like interesting. Like I said, I mainly kind of like the just to see what he's gonna do
Right.
to fix the kingdom, the foundation really of the kingdom,
Yeah.
instead of
Yeah.
just like, hey, I showed up and I'm really powerful and I'm gonna fight off the demons for you guys and all of the chicks are gonna be fawning over me and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Oh, but
I like
I
the
did
twist.
forget, he does have a dark elf chick as well. I totally forgot about
Ah.
her.
Of
A dark,
course.
yes, there's
Yeah.
a dark elf chick
Yeah.
who's the greatest warrior in the country. Um, and he tells her how to save their forest because the trees are dying out.
Ah.
He's a
So she
dark elf
pledges,
in the forest.
yeah, so she pledges her life to him.
It's a little more weird, but
Well,
whatever.
this
There
was
has to be an
actually
elf chick, so
It's different.
it's not a fantasy genre without an elf chick.
Yeah, I mean they establish right away that there's like dragon newts, dwarves, elves,
Yeah.
demons, obviously. So the very, exactly what you expect.
So this show I also haven't seen, but this is actually one I've seen a lot of recommendations for because there's been a lot of people who don't usually like isekai. Let's say this one isn't, that bad, like you said.
It
Jake's just trying to get away from the Attack on Titan recommendations.
it's like it's when you boil it down, most of it is isekai trash, and then you come to this show, and it still has a lot of that like isekai dumpster fire in it, but like it has like this other stuff that makes it
Interesting.
pretty watchable in my opinion.
Which is, yeah, I was.
That's good.
If I had had
That's
more
good.
time in my day to day, this is one of those shows that I would have picked up. So I want to learn more as you're watching it to see if I can, if I do need to just buckle down and invest the time and watch it myself.
Wrap yourself
I
into
think
another isekai.
Yeah, I think season 2 is airing right now. I think that's
Oh, okay.
yeah, because when I watched a video and it was recommended through a video, and they were saying that the season 2 was going, and I was like, okay, well then there's a fair enough for me to watch.
Yeah.
That I can cover it for a few episodes
Oh,
in
yeah,
the podcast at least.
I thought you were gonna start watching Ascendancy of a Bookworm to appease
Oh,
a certain
my
other.
I forgot my brother wants me to watch Ascendance of a Bookworm so bad.
Dude, I was
Whoops.
waiting. I was like, he finally started it.
I don't think
No.
I've ever heard of this show.
No, I caught everybody off guard with this one.
Yeah.
I didn't see
but
a
it,
bookworm.
but anyways, that's my show. Jake has been getting very into Dr. Stone. So why don't you tell us about your experiences?
All right. Well, so first off, tournament arc. That's what we start off with episode 13.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And who doesn't love a good old-fashioned tournament arc, even in a science anime? But
You thought you could escape it because it's a science anime?
no, I didn't. But I'm honestly glad it was in there because it was hilarious how it turned out.
Yes.
So anyways, basically to make this cure-all, that they need to save
I don't
People that are
remember
Kohaku's
petrified.
sister.
Yeah, I don't
Oh.
remember her name. I know.
Oh,
Kohaku, I
that
don't remember
he wants.
her
Yeah,
sister's
yeah.
name.
He wants to make the
Rory. It's Rory.
antibiotics.
It's Rory.
Rory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To save Rory, they need alcohol, and the only way they're gonna get alcohol fast enough is
Is to win the
basically
tournament.
by winning the tournament, and they need to win the tournament anyways to allow Senku to even give Rory the cure-all.
Well, yeah, because he's not allowed into the village.
No. Until he signs up for the tournament in episode 13
Yeah.
and is allowed into the village. But anyways, they draw lots to see who's gonna go up against who. And, you know, their whole plan revolves around wearing the big bad guy, well, not the big bad guy, Tsukasa, but the bad guy of the village, Magma, is wearing him down so that Kinro can eventually fight him. So what happens? Of course, Kinro goes up against Magma first round. And because Kinro has the fuzzy weakness, also known as he's blind as shit.
I think he's just nearsighted.
Yes, he is, because he can see things far away.
Yeah.
But that's still being blind. I'd
F
say.
in the chat for my nearsighted gang.
But anyways, we have a pair of glasses already in the form of the hat that I'm not gonna remember her name.
You can just call her Melonhead. Everyone does.
Is it Suiku? Something close
Suika.
to that. Suika.
Mhm.
Of course, she's been kidnapped, so Kohaku had to go and run off to try and find her, just in case she was actually, you know, yeah, in case she was getting killed. So she might have to forfeit her round, which would be really bad for Team Science, since Kohaku is their strongest fighter.
Easily.
Well, maybe you might be able to say Kinro now that he's once this happens. But anyways, she throws her melon at Kinro because she realizes that Kinro is nearsighted, just like her. Well, I don't know if she's just nearsighted, but she also has
they
bad
both
eyes.
have the fuzzy.
They both have bad eyes.
Fuzzy. Yeah.
So she throws the melon, he gets it on, and he's like, alright, cool, this is awesome. I can easily beat Magma now because Magma's just a brute. And Kinro has actual fighting training. So he goes all out, basically beats him, and Magma's like, on the ground, he's like, well, I give up, but you better check with the guy who is mediating the fight to make sure that this isn't cheating. And he's like, and because Kinro is the stick up the ass type of fellow, he's like, yeah, you're right. Yep, I gotta go check and see if this is okay.
No.
So he goes and checks, and of course it's okay, and Magma bops him over the head, breaks the helmet, and wins the fight. Which, if that's not cheating, I don't know what is, but apparently
Kinro,
that's
you
not
fool.
cheating. He already,
You
like,
fool.
But
he
apparently the
literally
village didn't give a
forfeited.
fuck.
Yeah, the village didn't care. They're just like, oh, he tricked you? Okay, that's not against the rules.
Oh, he said I give up.
Yes.
Clearly, he didn't give
yeah.
up.
He literally said that he gave up.
No, and I was making a joke as like as the judge of the fight. Oh, you say you give up? Oh, he's still in it. He didn't mean it.
Yeah.
Yep.
That would be an end of the fight sort of situation where the judge would then say, the helmet is either legal or not, and then make the decision that Kinro is
Clearly we
disqualified or not.
Clearly, we have Super Bowl referees here.
So anyways, that ends that episode. And we move into episode 14, which is Mantle versus Chrome, which is just a hilarious fight because
Chrome,
they're both just bad. So, but this fight really didn't matter. When basically Magma realizes that if Mantle takes the fall, that they have to move on to the third round, and then Kohaku, who still isn't back, has to basically surrender so that Senku would move forward, which isn't good for Team Science because Senku doesn't know how to fight. And of course, so Mantle does that. He gives up. Then we move on to, of course, Kohaku arrives just too late, and it's a surrender. So Senku moves forward. Then we move to the Ginro fight. I don't remember the guy he's fighting because he's a tertiary character. Literally, he might matter later on, but I haven't seen him matter in all the episodes I watched. But Ginro has been eating pure caffeine leaves the entire rest of the tournament. So in his mind, he looks like this great hero when really he's getting the crap eaten out of him in the fight. This is one of the funniest moments of this episode. Ginro is such a funny character. But anyways,
oh, Lord.
Ginro barely wins. So we go to the semifinal fight, which is Chrome and Magma. And of course, as we all knew, Chrome's just getting the crap kicked out of him. Because there were only two people that stood a chance against Magma, and both of them are already eliminated. So while Chrome is getting the crap kicked out of him, he notices the broken mask, and he picks it up with his stick and just points it at him and just stands there. And we're thinking, well, okay, can't Magma just walk over and knock him out? But we get the return of one of the best characters, Gen. Oh, Gen comes back, and basically does a little magic trick and tells him, Magma, if you move in the next minute, then your heart will explode. This is after, of course, they had explained that Senku thought Chrome had made a mistake with the glasses, because Chrome is trying to catch Magma's stuff on fire. Did I miss a joke? Joey, did you make a joke at me?
No, this is just a fun little mini game because they pronounce his name Chrome in the show. So every time you say Chrome, Joey's saying under his voice, Chrome.
Do they really pronounce it Chrome?
Yes.
Well, they're wrong. It's Chrome.
Yeah, whatever.
I'm gonna keep pronouncing it this. You can keep saying it on your breath, Joey. I don't care. Chrome. If you had a webcam, I'd be staring into your eyes, Joey. Chrome has actually been sweating and crying onto the glasses, which has turned it from a concave into an actual... I don't want to... I'll mess up the term that it actually is. But essentially, it turns it into an actual magnifying glass. Using the water as...
focusing the sun off of it.
Yes. Using the water to fill up where the glasses were concaved so that it will actually work as a magnifying glass. Which... I'm not 100% certain if the science works out, but it seems like it would.
Wouldn't it take too long to actually create the... Like,
it depends. I'm pretty sure it would take longer than a minute, but I don't know. Like, Senku does the math, and of course, it's a lot of complicated math, so I can't tell you one way or another.
Right,
If the
right,
math
yeah.
is 100% yes, this is correct, but it's very
That was the
possible they
only-
did the math for
Napkin maths.
it.
Yeah.
But
That was
anyways,
the only weird thing I had with that scene when I watched it. Is like, I don't know if it would happen that quickly, but
it could.
It's a small thing.
It
Yeah.
technically could. There
I didn't
are
know
things
enough
that
about
they've
science,
used. If you have a
so-
great enough magnification in a certain way, you can catch things on fire within seconds. It's a bunch of complicated math. It is. So,
Gotcha.
anyways, Gen gets magma to stay still until his clothing catches on fire. And then super combustion happens and magma is freaking out because he's on fire. And Chrome's like, okay, well, I'm not a murderer. Boop! And knocks him off the cliff. And wins against magma. Who would have thought that the heroes would win?
Not I, said the fly.
No, and I would never suspect that. That they get magma wins, they all get kicked out, and then Tsukasa shows up and kills them all. That's how this season ends.
Yep.
Yeah. That's how the story ends.
No,
Tsukasa's the real Dr. Stone.
I've always,
Yeah.
I've always
He's a
been wrong.
chiropractor. That's why he's smacking their,
It's a chiropractor.
he's just cracking their bones.
Oh boy.
He's just cracking their bones.
PhD Tsukasa. Holy
Anyways,
oh my god.
we move on to episode 15. Where basically, so first, Ginro goes up to Ruri at the beginning of the episode and tells her that Senku and he are gonna forfeit so that she can marry Crom. And go ahead, Joey. I'm waiting for it.
So he said Crom.
I'm just changing it up now. Are you gonna say anything, Joey?
I wasn't listening. You ruined it now. You ruined the joke.
But basically, Ruri states that she'll marry anybody who, obviously makes it.
Really?
And you're not. Yeah, I don't care. You can't change it to a different name now. It's not gonna matter to me. But so Ginro gets it in his head that I can just. You're canceled, Joey. I'll mute you.
Now you're ruining it.
I'll mute you. So he's thinking in his head, you know what? I'm just gonna win. I'm gonna get to be the chief. I'm gonna get to do all these things. So he tries to take out Senku. And this is one part that I don't remember super well. I know that Senku wins. I don't. Oh, it's he uses his spear against the melon as a counterbalance. So he puts just a little bit of pressure upwards, but it hits Ginro in the balls and puts a lot of force there. So he's, of course, out for the count. And then we get to the finals, finally. It's going to be Chrome versus Senku. And, of course, Chrome is knocked out. So Senku wins by default. Senku is the new chief now. And basically, they tell him, "Oh, you're gonna marry her. You're married to her now, technically by village tradition." And he's like, "All right, bring me your alcohol." And they're like, "Oh, what? This one's bad. It's turned to vinegar." He's like, "No. I want that too. I want the vinegar too."
Village chiefs hate this guy. Find out why.
And then they're like, he's like, okay, I got the stuff. And they're basically, as soon as he gets the stuff, they tell him, I think they tell him that, oh, you gotta you gotta party here as well. And he's like, oh, this comes with, being the chief and stuff. And they're like, yeah. He's like, oh, I want a divorce. I'm not chief anymore. And he just runs away with, his knocked out comrades and the alcohol. So, that was funny to watch them all be severely shooken up by that. So they go back, they make the medicine, they give it to Ruri, and so they leave. They're waiting for it to work, but it looks like Ruri's getting, quote, worse. But of course, Senku figures out exactly what's wrong with her with the information that he's provided, and it's just pneumonia. They just have to keep giving her.
It's just pneumonia, isn't it?
Yes, it's just pneumonia. Which, even nowadays, technically, it's a very dangerous disease still.
Yeah,
it actually has a fairly high mortality
rate. Antibiotics.
Yeah, it's still lethal if you don't
yes.
treat it.
I have actually had pneumonia myself. It's not fun.
It sucks.
Yeah.
It's usually more lethal in elderly people.
Yes.
Because their immune system is just.
But in someone like Ruri, who has had it for a long time, it is not good.
Yeah.
But essentially, Senku's like, yeah, she'll be fine. We just have to keep giving her more of the drugs. And we get basically to the end of the episode. Ruri's healthy. She's running around. She's having a great time finally being able to actually go outside and do things.
Cries.
Does he? I wouldn't be surprised if he does, but I don't remember that. It could have happened.
Kohaku's a girl, Jake.
What?
Kohaku's a girl.
I thought you said Chrome.
No.
Like, that's what I heard.
Kohaku cries.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
Joey doesn't say Chrome. Joey says Chrome.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
If I wanted a wrong pronunciation, I'd listen to Joey's speech.
Okay. Okay.
But anyways, I'm getting off on a tangent here. I think it's either at the very end of this episode or the very beginning of the next episode that basically, Senku is told that the village is named after him. It is the Ishigami village, which his full name is Senku Ichigami. I think that's the very end of episode 15. Then we move into, basically, we get the tale of Ishigami village spoken from Ruri to Senku, and it is just, this is really where I start really getting into the series.
Yeah, I figured this was going to be the point where once you started this,
but
you got to finish it.
It was so, honestly, if it weren't for the podcast, I probably would have just finished the rest of the season. But I wanted to make sure I spaced it out so I wouldn't have too long to go over it. But this brings us to episode 16, which is all about Byakuya. And he's always wanted to go to space. And, of course, Senku is trying to help him because the one thing he failed was swimming in his clothing. So Senku makes an electroshock suit for him to train in the water, which, for a person of science, seems a little counterintuitive, because you'd think, if this goes wrong in any way, I've just killed my dad.
Yeah, I was gonna say Byakuya being Senku's dad, for those unaware.
Stepdad.
Yes. Technically not his biological dad. I was gonna get to that. But yes, Byakuya is not, even though there's no reason, there might be a reason put up further in the future, but they look the same. I know it's just anime shenanigans, or there may actually have some significance in the future. None that I've seen so far, but they look the same. They look related. They just wanted to it to be a you're related to us? Oh no, we can't be with you anymore, Senku. He's not my real dad. We're not related by blood. The classic thing
God.
in anime brother will say about their anime sister.
No, it's okay. We're only cousins.
She's
moving
just my...
on from that. Moving on from that rabbit hole.
Whew. But anyways, we get to... So basically, Byakuya does finally make it to be an astronaut, and he goes up into space.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, just some may say that. So he goes up to space. He goes up to space with, I don't remember the other guy's name because his name is brought up so sporadically. Shamil? Is it Shamil?
I don't remember. His crew's not really that important.
Lillian's important.
Well, yeah, she is, but the rest of them outside of the the story.
There's not. I don't remember the couple's name that was already up there. I don't remember the girl that Shamil ends up. Is it Connie? Is it really Connie? Is it something that simple? Yeah, it's Connie. It's Connie. But anyways, he goes up with Shamil and Lillian. Lillian's this big time music star, down up on the planet Earth. She spent they said 50 million. I'm presuming yen. 50 million yen, not $50 million. Could have been $50 million.
She is American, so
she
probably
is. Yes, she is American. She's blonde. All of her songs are in English, so she is American. And she also responds. There's one conversation she has with Byakuya that she wants to learn his mother language, which is Japanese. Even though she's talking fluent Japanese throughout the entire... But that's not the point. Anyways, they're up there. They're with the other crew. And they see the explosion. What happens down on the planet? It's a big green explosion and then a bunch of green gas passing over the entire planet. And they can't make communications with anybody down on the mainland. So they all decide that they need to go back to Earth. Of course, they're gonna go back to Earth. They have to figure out what's going on. So they send down... it's Shamil, Connie... Is it Connie? Yeah, I don't remember. The second person isn't important. But it's Shamil and Lillian go down. And they're trapped in the water because they went off course. And basically, where they need to go out is also submerged. If they open it, they're all gonna die. So, down goes Byakuya to, of course, save them. He and the couple that were already up in the space station. So yeah, it was Connie that went down with Shamil and Lillian. So they all go down, and Byakuya rows all the way out and saves them. So they all go back to the mainland. The one couple, they have a few kids. Shamil and Connie get married. They show so many kids by the end of this little story, but they really don't show, besides the two original kids, they do not show who else has kids. Like Shamil and Connie, we don't know how many kids they had. We don't know how many kids, we know Byakuya and Lillian, they had to have had at least one, I would presume, because they look like Lillian.
Yeah, Kohaku and
Ruri especially looks exactly like her.
Yeah, right. They're definitely related.
So we know there is a genetic line that way, and Lillian was definitely into Byakuya. Shamil and Connie, they get married in episode 17, so we know they were the original couple there, and then the other couple, they were married before they were even on the space station. Yeah. But of course, all good things must come to an end. Connie gets incredibly sick with, wouldn't you guess it, pneumonia. And because they're in this past timeline and they don't have someone who has the prior knowledge like Senku. They're screwed.
Rip.
So the couple says, take care of our kids. We're gonna try and go to the mainland and get some actual antibiotics so we can bring it back and Connie can live. They never come back because they died out at sea, because that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Connie dies. Connie succumbs to her illness. And of course, next up to get sick, it's Shamil. And then Shamil dies. Which, the little... Like, we didn't get to spend much time with Shamil. He has a little moment with Byakuya, and he's like, even these past few days where we haven't had all this technology, it's been the best days of my life. I've actually enjoyed them. Which, of course, tugs on the heartstrings a little bit, but because
cell phones are better.
No, that's not what I was gonna say, Joey. It's just, we've had an episode and a half with Shamil. There has not, well, not even that. Maybe a full episode's worth of time we've had with Shamil. There's not enough time for us to be super emotionally connected with him, so it's a little sad, but it's not like an emotional tearjerker or anything.
I mean,
and then,
they
of
did
course,
a good enough job that you felt something. That's all you can really expect.
and then, of course, Lillian has to die next, because Byakuya has to be alone. And we don't really hear
how. How'd you feel about that one, Jake?
What?
How'd you feel about that one?
About Byakuya being alone?
No, about Lillian's death.
It was sad, but again, I had maybe an episode of time with her.
Oh, okay.
It's sad, but it's like, these were great episodes, don't get me wrong, but if you introduce me to a character in episode 16 about halfway through it, and then she dies halfway through episode 17, there's not going to be a whole lot of emotional connection.
Yeah,
there's
I just wanted to make sure it was consistent among the genders.
No, it was. You didn't even I didn't even
Shut
mention
up, Joe.
Connie. I just said she died to pneumonia. I didn't even care.
Roasted.
Honestly, Shamil's death was more sad than Lillian's death. To be quite honest, it had more emotional impact because she's just kind of like, yeah, I'm dying. Pass on the stories. Where Shamil's like, I never got to really have fun, but this time in the stone world has been the best days of my life. And that ramen was the best ramen I've ever had that you gave me. I didn't mention that before, but the ramen, because I wasn't even going to go into it. But anyways.
No, go into it.
I'm not going into it, because I've spent too much time. So, Senku finally gets to visit Byakuya's grave. And it's that one there. Because we've spent time with Senku, the fact that this guy who we haven't really seen be super emotional at all, he kind of breaks down at his surrogate father's grave. Because he didn't even get to be around to say goodbye. He was just gone. And it's sad. That death was probably the strongest. We didn't even see him die. And his death was still the strongest impact. I really, really liked it. And it pushed Senku forward even more to fix the world, to do everything that he already was going to do. But now he needs to do it for everyone so they can get back to a normal life when he had to basically lose his dad so that the world could continue.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it just goes to show that sometimes less is more. In this case, I think it was better that we didn't get to see him die, because that just adds to the fact that, you know...
It puts you in the same shoes as Senku.
Yeah.
He didn't even get to experience the death of his own father.
Yeah, you're like, oh my god, he's just gone.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's it.
Which is
He's
exactly
not
what
coming back.
Senku's experiencing. Like, he's just gone. That's it.
Yep.
he doesn't have any chance of finding him and unpetrifying him. He's just dead.
Yep, he's
Yep.
gone.
And it also,
And
it's also a good way of explaining, like, well, you're thinking, like, well, why are there humans unpetrified?
yeah.
There you have it.
Yep.
It also gives Senku a reason to care about the village. Because for the longest time,
True.
until this point, Senku didn't really give a crap about the village other than, I
Citizens
need to
for
be,
the Science Empire.
Exactly. So, I mean, with this here, not only is it great backstory for Senku, but it also gives him a very, very compelling reason to care about this village in particular.
Yeah. So, we get to the final episode I had to watch, which introduces a cool new character, Hyoga. I could be mispronouncing his name, but basically he is a very specific type of spear wielder, which is it's very cool. I like how basically he has a handle and he spins it so that the spear rotates and will make it incredibly hard to predict where it's going to strike. It makes it a very deadly. I don't know if it makes it more deadly, but definitely harder to predict and counter it. But basically, Senku does a little trick because Tsukasa's army, led by Hyoga, shows up to infiltrate the village. And Senku prepares to already have flintlock pistols unlocked by taking a rod, filling it with some gunpowder to just kind of do a little poof, and they have Magma throw a rock so it looks like they just shot at the wall. Yeah, the cliff edge. Sorry, the cliff edge. So they're like, "Come on, go ahead, try us. We have
guns.
We have firearms already."
Yeah.
And obviously they don't want to do that. So they back off. But they're thinking it's flintlock, which means since it's flintlock during a storm, they're not going to operate properly. Because until we've gotten some more modern day firearms, those older firearms did not work well under those types of conditions.
Yeah, powder needs to stay dry.
Yes. So, of course, Senku has to make different weapons because he knows they're going to come back and he knows they're going to attack during the water storm. So he makes katanas, which are really cool, and the old man gets so pumped up about being able to make katanas. He's so happy.
Yep. I love him.
He's great. Is that the first time that he got so excited and he burst off his clothing that literally all of his clothing came off? I can't remember. I can't remember
that
which
might be
part.
the first time
maybe.
He does it a lot. So.
But anyways, they come, they attack, but Hyoga is shown to still have an incredibly strong advantage even over these katanas just because of the way his specific spear is designed. Until all of a sudden he's attacking and his spear just kind of splits apart. And he then realizes, oh, this was ruined before the fight even happened, and Gen was the one who did it. So he now knows that Gen is a traitor, and Gen goes over to Senku's side because he obviously can't go back with them. He'll be killed. I think that's around the end of the episode. And that's episode 18. I'm super into it. It's been very exciting. The science has been ramping up. Episode 17's ending was super strong. It was very good. And I'm looking forward to the end of season 1. Any questions, thoughts, concerns?
No. I think you did a great job.
Yes, I did a very good job of watching the show. Thank you, Joey.
Yes, nice job. Viewing it with pleasure. It's a fun ride. I love that show. I can't wait for season 3.
I can't wait for season 2.
Hell yeah. So, anyways, Joey got very absorbed in Golden Time, and he ended up finishing the show. So we're gonna devote some time to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I did end up finishing the show. Yeah, I had some thoughts about the end of Golden Time. Um, but before we get into those, I do want to say that overall, I still probably recommend the show. Um, it's hard because the
Even hearing
first
probably
12
is just bad news bears for you.
the the first 12 or 13 episodes were honest, I think amazing. I think they were fantastic and really did something special for the genre because a lot of these shows don't take themselves seriously. They don't tackle as many mature themes as this one did, and I think they handled it very well. I think the characters were handled amazingly, Linda especially. And they did a good job of getting me to actually like Coco and Bonri's relationship, even though at first I didn't at all. That being said, after the first 13 episodes, I don't have that much good to say about the rest. Um, it's hard for me to give a full recommendation because this genre of series, so much of it depends on the ending. I know a lot of people that watch these, they put a lot of emphasis on the ending, and because that's obviously who we end up, who ends up with who. A lot of shows build up towards this ending, so the last like 4 or 5 episodes are usually dedicated to the big reveal in the last 2 episodes or the last episode. So that episode or episodes holds a lot of power over the overall feeling of the show. And I gotta say, the last episode of Golden Time did not hit with me at all. And in fact, I was insulted in some instances. So we'll get into that right now. I feel like the second half of the show kind of teetered off. Where the first half did a really good overarching job of keeping you interested in Coco and Bonri's relationship, and also dealing with Yana and Oka and 2D, and really keeping um, Linda and Bonri and Coco's relationship really condensed, and they were both given really good amounts of screen time. And then the second half happens, and it starts off pretty strong. Uh, actually, I think the build up to the beach episode was pretty good. I liked that Ghost Bonry, even though I still don't really understand Ghost Bonry, especially with what happens at the end. That I'll get to that. I like the idea that he was finally fed up with present Bonry, and he's like, "Look, you've rejected me a bit too many times, so I'm just gonna curse you, essentially." And things just start going bad for him, and it's shown plenty of times that he just is making the wrong decision by rejecting his past. And like you have to own up to this. And he just doesn't and doesn't and doesn't. And it culminates in the beach episode where it doesn't really even become a beach episode, which is funny in of itself because Ghost Bonry has just cursed them, and everything just keeps going wrong and wrong and wrong until halfway through, where the sun finally comes out, and you think, oh well, they finally got over it, and they have a really nice scene where they even before that they kind of make the best of the rain because it rains on the day they go to the beach, and they get out in their bathing suits and just mess around in the rain. And I still don't know if Coco ever went to the bathroom or not, but they kind of skip over that. But you wouldn't have been able to tell. So And then afterwards, they're all driving home, and they're all really tired. And Coco says that she'll drive, unlike 2D, because 2D drove there. And she says, "Yeah, I'm fine." And they all end up falling asleep, including Coco. She falls asleep at the wheel, and they almost crash. And what saves them is Bonry remembering Linda meeting him, or him running out to meet Linda from the hospital. And she says something to him that he's been wondering about for a while. He had a dream, couldn't get to it, and that finished. And she said, "Yeah, just press on." And he wakes up. That gets him to wake up and stop the car. And they're all safe. And Coco feels terrible about it. Oka got hurt. All this was really good. And I was like, "Oh, okay, all right, that's good. Maybe this will finally be the pull that Bonry and them need to really accept that he needs to look into his past, and that something's you know amiss, clearly." I really liked the argument that him and Coco got into about what happened, and about how Bonry's like, "You can't just shut people out. You can't just forget, what happened." And I was watching, and I was like, "Oh, I don't think you're in a position to really start yelling at Coco about that." And as I said that, she's like, "I don't want to hear that from you." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah. See, you read into that yourself, Bonry." And they use this as the springboard moment to actually start delving into his past, and they go into there. He ends up doing a 360 with Linda, where the last time he talked to her, it was kind of definitive, like, "I don't want to see you anymore. We're not, our past doesn't exist." And she ends up tearing up the letter. And now he's like, "No, that was wrong. We're back. I want to know more about my past. I want to accept it." And so they go to the class reunion, and he has fun there. He still doesn't remember everything, but he got to see people, so he's now open to accepting his past. That's the point of their relationship so far, is that now Bonry's accepting his past. They don't really do much with it outside of that, but it's the idea is that now he's open to accepting his past, whereas before he wasn't. The later half, honestly, kind of just fumbles Oka and Mitsuo. It's revealed that during summer break, Mitsuo might have a girlfriend, and they think that it's Oka, so they go in, and Coco's really heartbroken when they find out that it's not. Well, no, she's not heartbroken. Coco is surprised when they find out that it's not Oka. And Coco's still being a bitch to her, and she's like, "Oh, I thought it was you," and blah 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 blah. And they find out that it was actually Linda. And I gotta say, I don't. At first, I was like, "Oh, all right, that's interesting. I can see the plot lines they could do with this, with Yana actually liking Linda, and him not knowing about the past between Bonry and Linda." And I was like, "Oh, okay, that could be something interesting that they end up doing." And they end up just fubbing that plot line. I think I don't like the whole Mitsuo ends up with Linda thing at all, especially with how it just throws Oka's character to the side, because her whole arc essentially throughout the show so far was that she liked Yana, and she didn't realize it until it was too late. And I kept waiting for the redemption there, but ultimately all we get is a scene with her and Bonry where she says, "I messed up, and I didn't realize I liked Mitsuo until it was too late, and now I don't know how to tell him." And eventually towards the end of the show, she has her old camera and she's like, you know what? I've recorded several times during this where I'm heartbroken and I messed up, and I'm gonna show it at the end of the semester to my film class, and maybe Mitsuo will figure out that I'm actually talking about him. Maybe he won't. Either way, I don't care. And that scene uh, at the end, we're seeing watching her show the film, and Mitsuo standing beside her, and we don't get his reaction. I mean, we do, but his reaction is seemingly just bland. We don't. We're not shown anything of him figuring out whether or not she meant him, and he ends up seemingly with Linda at the end of the show anyway. So that arc there is just dead in the water because um, Oka just comes up on her own that it's okay that she messed up with Yana, and she's just got to live with it and move on. And I I thought that was kind of a waste, an even bigger waste, in my opinion, especially with Oka's character going off of what I said about her and Yana, is the fact that it ended up being, well, it ended up being 2D that convinced Coco to fight for Banri. Because what ends up happening is that Banri's memories return, and he goes away. He says, I'm leaving Tokyo. He forgets everything that happened up until the accident. And Coco ends up breaking up with him. She doesn't want to, but she ends up breaking up with him because she realizes that he's going to forget about me anyway. And I guess she thinks it's better this way, that I got to talk about the promise. So he ends up having flashbacks to where partly he disappears, and whenever he disappears back to his past self, he forgets all about Coco and everyone there. And this makes Coco worried and him worried about their relationship. And Coco's been having a dream about her and Banri driving together. And there's a sign that says get off. And she gets out of the car and Banri drives away. And she can't chase him. And she's worried that he's going to run away from her. And she tells him about this, and he says, do everything you can. Promise me you'll do everything you can to stay in the car. And I'll do everything I can not to drive away from you. And they both promise that when this inevitable thing that's coming to them, when they have to face it, they'll both do their best not to run away from it immediately. And Coco says she promises, Banri says he promises. And then the first opportunity that he gets, which I guess isn't necessarily his fault because he literally just in a different state of mind at the time, but the first time he runs into this obstacle where he says, I'm losing myself. I got to tell all my friends, Oka, Yana, and 2D, about what happened to me in my past. He transforms right before it, and he freaks out, and he says, don't tell Coco that I'm remembering my memories, and he runs away. He abandons it. And I thought this was going to be a really good plot line when Coco broke up with him, because she could say, well, you broke our promise. You ran away from the burden, or from the promise that we made. You broke it. You shown that you didn't really want to fight for it, and now you're going to leave anyway. So I don't see the point in continuing this relationship. But that wasn't brought up. It turns out she just we're not given a definitive answer either way. So she's just, I break up with you. I don't want to, but you're gonna forget me anyway. So I don't see where this relationship is going, and she breaks up with him. And then we get to the final episode. The final episode was not great at all. Bonry loses his memories completely and goes back home. And he spends some time with Linda, and Coco ends up showing up to his house. And she says, hey, I'm just here to return this DVD to you. Bonry doesn't recognize her at all. And he says, oh, well, are you Oka? Because, you got the DVD and you're the O camera, because he left some notes for him because he knew he was going to go away. So he left some notes. He doesn't recognize her. Linda's over there, and she says, nope, or Coco's just okay with him thinking that she's Oka, and gives her the DVD. He's got the pocket mirror. She's got his pocket mirror because he has hers. And he sees his pocket mirror in her hand after she put it in there because she wanted him to have the DVD and the pocket mirror. And he takes it out and gives it back to her at first. And she's like, oh, this must be yours, because he doesn't remember the significance of it, that she gave it to him when they first got together. And he sees something that he wrote on it. I assume he wrote on it, or she wrote on it. It's not clear who wrote on it. But it says remember. And he broke his pocket mirror. So his is cracked. But hers isn't. So when he sees that, he goes back after she leaves. It triggers his memories. And he remembers all about her. And he starts dashing over to try to catch her. And I wasn't like super thrilled about it, but I was like, okay, fine. Because they've pretty much given up on Linda at this point being like a significant threat to their relationship, which I was really disappointed about. We don't get much with her at all in these last couple episodes. She kind of just gives up on being with him. But she ends up running after him because he runs out in slippers, and seeing Linda actually run out after him and throw him his running shoes that she bought him to say, hey, you're gonna need these if you chase after your girlfriend, even though I haven't told you how I feel yet. I'm just not going to. And he's like, oh, thank you. She's like, I must have bought you these shoes for this specific moment. And he finally gets to the bridge, and he has some psychedelic trip. I had no clue what happens here. He has like a trip, and he sees Ghost Bonry, and Ghost Bonry's pissed at him, and I'm pissed at him. And Ghost Bonry's like, what, now you can see me? Now all of a sudden, I'm relevant again? And Bonry's like, what? What's going on? And Ghost Bonry's like, you know what? It doesn't even matter. I'm done. I'm done with this. He tries to leave. And then all of a sudden, Ghost Linda just shows up.
That's real Linda, by the way.
That's real Linda?
Yeah.
That makes even less sense. That what?
I'm sorry.
So what? Coco's just standing on the other side of the bridge. Bonry's like, oh, thank you. I'm just not going to. And Bonry's like, well, thank you. I'm just not going to. And Coco's just standing on the other side of the bridge. Bonry's like, oh, thank you. I'm just not going to. And Coco's just standing on the other side of the bridge. Banri sees Ghost Banri. Linda also sees Ghost. No, that actually makes zero sense. Because Linda, after running away from Ghost Banri, says, I finally figured out something I have to tell myself. And she runs away. So if that's real Linda, what is she telling herself that she didn't already do? She says, I finally let go of something I can tell myself to let go of, or something. What is she running away to tell herself about? If that's real, I don't know. I don't know. When Linda turned around and said yes to Banri on the bridge, and then she turns around and says, it's a yes to Coco, I stopped watching. I shut it off, and I didn't watch the rest of it until like 3 a.m. Because it felt like such a troll moment to just toss everything that Linda's character has done and been through to the side, to just be like, you know what, the past is the past. I don't get my chance to redo this, because she says that several times. I mean, there's so much more that I have to say that I've just skipped over, but that she says several times that, you know, the past is the past. Even Banri says it. You have to live in the present, and you can't let the past hold you back, and all this weird shit. And Linda herself even says that I don't get a redo, you know, but you do, because she yells at Banri about being okay with Coco breaking up with him, and she's like, you can't be okay with this, because if you are, what does that mean to me? You know, what are my feelings? You still have a second chance. I don't. Even though Banri and Coco's relationship is an exact mirror to what Linda's going through. Like, literally, Coco is in the same position that Linda is in the second half, and she can't handle it for like a day, where Linda's been dealing with this entire situation, the entire show, and it's just like, oh, I don't have a second chance, even though the last 2 episodes, and every time that he goes back to who he was back then, she literally has a chance. Her redo is smacking her in the face over and over and over again. And she's just like, no, it's okay. I don't need to be happy. It's better for me to kill my own feelings and be okay with other people getting what they want. And I just need to not accept it and move on, because I have Mitsuo. And I can just be okay with getting Mitsuo. And my feelings for Banri don't matter. And we don't even get to see them having their actual, like, scene, because when they go back in the past before the bridge scene, Banri just has an inner monologue where he's like, oh, I still love Linda, and I still want to know her answer on the bridge, but I haven't brought it up, and neither has she. So I guess that's an answer in of itself. And I'm like, no, that's not okay. That's not okay. You should bring it up.
It may not be okay, but he's not technically wrong. That's not something that... Sure.
That's an answer. He's not technically wrong, but that's not her answer. That's not what the start of the show, like, put in your head. She clearly, if you watch the first 13 episodes, she clearly still has feelings for him. That's obvious. She's clearly lying because she doesn't want to come between Coco and him. And she still feels bad and blames herself for what happens. And for her to just suddenly over the next like 13 episodes just be like, oh, well, you know what? I'm never going to get another shot. It doesn't matter. I mean, and they even hint that she actually likes Mitsuo, but she's upset that Banri didn't say anything, because he's like, oh, so you actually do like Mitsuo. You're just not okay with it because you still like me. Or like that's the implication going forward. And like her character is just what? It's okay. Just I don't actually need to like him. I can just be happy without it. What? And again, 2D's just left in the wind completely. He doesn't end up with anyone because he's abandoned the 3D
Who
plane.
did you expect him to end up with? He was
Well,
very clear that he only liked 2D girls.
No, it wasn't actually, because
He's a 2D mastermind.
It's made mention several times that he actually likes Oka, and there's several times in their interactions that he is flirting with Oka, and it's just not picked up on because obviously Oka is supposed to be Mitsuo's companion before they decided to just completely cut Linda and Banri from the story.
So there's a lot to unpack there, and not enough time. What I will say is, I do think the Oka stuff was out of character. However, I do recognize that it is true for pretty much every human being on Earth that jealousy changes you, and it can warp your actions. And I took that as she didn't recognize what she had until she lost it, and once she lost it, she became jealous. And for Mitsuo, I think what you have is a guy that has been burned a couple too many times, with his relationship with Coco, and his unrequited love with Oka, and he might not have noticed her feelings, but she also waited a very long time to slightly display her feelings. I think it's very reasonable to expect that a guy like Mitsuo would move on and probably wouldn't notice Oka's feelings, um, especially because, he's probably tired of like dancing around this crap. He had feelings for this girl, and she shut him down. And then, he finds Linda, and he's like, well, there you go. What's like for him, what's not to like about Linda, and why would I sit here and keep fawning over Oka when like that's exactly what Coco did to me?
And you said it
So
yourself, Joey. Linda
Yeah,
is
but
best
Linda
girl
does
in
the
this
same
series.
yes, Linda
Yeah,
is best girl.
So why would
makes
Mitsuo
sense.
wait around for
No,
Oka
that
when
all
he can
makes
have
sense.
Linda?
That all makes sense except for the fact that Linda, during every part of the show except for the one scene at the end of the show where she blushes around Mitsuo, stonewalls him like nobody's business. If Mitsuo is actually sick of people and this whole game, why would he continue to chase after Linda when she makes it clear repeatedly that she's not interested in him? And she stonewalls him over and over and over and over again.
Because he's very much like Coco.
And he also, those things happen before he knows about Linda and Bonri's past relationship.
It's true.
And that changes a lot of things.
That was another thing that was kind of mishandled, because it's shown that he's actually really upset that Linda and Bonri didn't tell him about it, and he stops talking to them for a while, and 2D ends up hating the rift that's come in the group, and he says, nope, we made a promise at the start of the show that if we decided to hang out, everyone was by obligation supposed to show up. And Bonri's like, you're right, we're all going to have this talk, we're going to talk it out, because at that point, so many things had happened, so many issues and rifts had come between the group that we really needed a scene for them to talk it out. And Coco's like, Bonri's like, we can do this, but I don't know if Mitsuo is going to show up. He's pretty upset with me right now. And Coco's like, don't worry, I can get out there. We can fix this. And the way that they get Mitsuo to show up is Coco lied about an emergency to show up. And the only clarification that we get the resolution that we get for Mitsuo showing up and like forgiving, I guess, Banri and I mean we don't even get a scene between him and Linda, but the only confrontation that we get or conclusion that we get from that is Mitsuo saying, "Yeah, well, I'm sorry, I was upset in the moment, but I guess I shouldn't have been." And then Banri has his another one of his mental freakouts, but I mean, like just compared to the way that situations were handled and brought up with in the first half of the season to now, it felt like a lot of it was rushed. It felt like I at least to me, it felt like I was watching two completely different shows. I mean, there's so much more that
I think I think they could have done more with Mitsuo and Linda. I do think that is correct. I also think that um, Mitsuo being as upset with them as he was unwarranted,
Yeah.
and I think he also came to that realization. And you know, perhaps they could have just done a better job at explaining that, but
I think the
it it
execution of that was really poor.
it really does boil down to like I was more upset than I should have been. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's reasonable. I think it's reasonable for like a human being to have that kind of reaction and then to come to that conclusion. And B, I think they did sort of. I mean, they kind of crutched a little bit on like Bonri's switches, um, to kind of interrupt like potential like major growth moments for like characters.
I think one of the
And this was like their way of like kind of
yeah.
disrupting the flow and kind of causing more uncertainty. Um, so I think that's like it either works or it doesn't. And if it worked for you, then great. And if it didn't, then it you might see it as it just falling flat on its face. As far as all of the Linda, like who, like what does she get or whatever, you're upset with how things ended up with her. I think um, the way that I saw it was um, here we had Linda like the whole time who was just trying to support Bonri, knowing that it was very unlikely she would ever have him due to the fact that he's a new person. And every time he swapped, it was very short-lived. And so like these quote unquote opportunities that she would have to like try and like tell him how she feels and perhaps start the relationship that they both always wanted. Um, it doesn't really work, especially when she sees that like these swaps are like boom, they happen and then they're done. Like as quickly as they come, he's gone again. And so
Yeah.
like here she has to deal with the fact that the guy that she loved um continues to disappear over and over again. And she's really wrestling with that throughout the show. And the beautiful thing for me with the ending was while it is very suspend your disbelief for the ghost Bonry stuff, um, the thing for me that was beautiful was they finally gave Linda closure on it because she had kind of steeled her nerves to move on from the Bonry that is gone and has been gone for a long time at this point. And um, while they don't show enough of it, um, Mitsuo is, Mitsuo is like a good sort of, I'm not saying it's
Yeah.
right, but like a good sort of rebound, quote unquote, or like
Yeah.
somebody to help her get through it. Um, and I mean, they do make it a point to say in the show that he's very handsome and he's tall and he's like, he has that charisma and whatnot. So like they give her this really really nice closure with the old Bonry. She can finally let go because she knows he's gone. Like she knows that regardless of whether she tried to get the current Bonry, it won't work.
I think you
Yeah. I
nailed
mean,
a
it,
lot
So
of things on the head, Ryan.
so she's like the ultimate, she is literally the ultimate wingman in like look, it's not going to work for me, and it's really difficult, but I'm trying to accept that. So you need to go and make this work with Coco.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like seeing she can live vicariously through them by seeing a love succeed where hers did not.
The only thing I disagree with, from everything that you said, was essentially that there's literally no guy in this show that deserves Linda. She's
Truth.
too
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
for
Truth.
literally every guy
Yeah.
in this show.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true.
Truth.
I can see why the characters ended up the way they did. It just, I definitely feel like we needed way more time to get there. It felt like Linda went from still grappling with her feelings for Bonry to the show just completely, because at the halfway point you still think that there's a possibility that Linda and Coco might like fight for the attention, but like by 15 or 16 you I don't think there's any intelligent viewer that still thought that Linda was going to even have a shot with Bonry at the end. I think you're deluding yourself. And
I think the difference is, as a viewer, you wish that Linda had a shot.
yeah,
It's not that you think she will. It's that
yeah,
you
they
continue wishing that it could happen, and that's what makes the closure that she gets with Ghost Bonry so sweet. Because you're like, okay, like at least they know, like at least they have that, like
I mean, regardless of how much sense it makes, because I still think it makes absolutely zero sense. I don't know how she sees Ghost Bonry. If that is her, I don't know why she runs off immediately. That whole scene makes absolutely zero sense. It just looks like they threw it in to give her that closure, and it sounds like the whole thing was rushed, like
mhm.
immensely.
I agree
And
with
we,
you that it is a little rushed by the end. They definitely it feels a little rushed.
I get where the
I'll give you
characters
that.
ended up.
If they had like 2 more episodes, it would probably
They could
be
have
like the
closed it up.
perfect amount of time.
They could have
Yeah.
But
closed it up a little bit better.
Yeah, but that's pretty much. There's so much more, but we we don't have. I don't have the time
mm.
to get into it deeper. I mean,
Whew.
we might do a separate.
So overall, Joey, you're saying you don't give a recommendation for Golden Time.
I mean, it's one of those things, Jake, where you said you're either going to agree with the way they ended it or you're not. It's a very divisive ending. I don't know if I can give a full recommendation for an ending as divisive as that, but at the same time, I do think it is worth the watch because it's definitely something you're going to remember.
The ride
I mean,
is worth
you
it.
did say
despite the
you did
conclusion.
say it was damn good for the majority of it. You
Yeah,
just don't agree
yeah.
with
I
exactly how they ended it.
I think that the second half of the show is absolutely weaker than the first half. I think a lot of things were rushed, and it feels it's not as bad as Game of Thrones season 8. Not at all.
How
Not
dare you
at
even
all.
try
I
and
know.
compare it to that?
I know.
Let's just I'm just gonna
but
nip that in the bud right now.
It
You
feels
shut the hell up.
it feels like some of the conclusions that the characters came to happened too quickly. That's all I'm saying. I understand how they got there, and it makes sense. It's just they needed more time. But that's it. That's it. We really got to wrap this up because.
Well, anyways, had a little bit of a banger of an episode. Thank you. Thank you everybody for showing up to episode 4. Once again, we're having a lot of fun doing this, and we hope to continue for a long time. Next week will be more Hero Academia and Jujutsu Kaisen, as well as more of our fresh perspective. And we may, in fact, begin a new manga together. But y'all will just have to stick around to see. But yeah, that's it. Thanks again. Bye bye.